Welcome back to Jane's Stories of Life. I'm thinking of this one today as being either Home Sweet Home or House Sweet House. Have you ever had a house that even after other people have lived in it, after you've got sold it and other owners have owned it, that it is still your house no matter what? That's how it is with the house that we owned in Schenectady when our children were growing up. Our first house we bought, we learned you don't buy a cute house of 2 bedrooms and suddenly have 2 children within 18 months of each other. And so we ended up buying a larger house a few years later for $25,000, a 4-bedroom house that became our home until our children were both in college. They were 4 and 3 years old when we bought that house, so that's really the house they grew up in. The house itself was a wonderful, unique structure. It was on a tree-lined boulevard, which meant the center of the street had an island of grass and trees. The entire block was probably 4 or 5 blocks long, and it was a lovely street with all these lovely trees and things. People didn't have garages for the most part, so you were excellent at parallel parking. Boy, you had to be, because that's what we had. The house itself was old. It was probably built in the early 1900s. It's part of the area near General Electric plot, they used to call it, where a lot of the General Electric people used to live. That was their headquarters. When you walked into the house, the entrance foyer had a fireplace. And so the age of the house was such that probably that's where you came in and stood in front of the fire to warm yourself before going into the rest of the house. There was a full formal living room, a full dining room. Between the 2 rooms, there was what they call a pocket door. You could close off the wood. You could close doors between the 2, and they slid in the pocket between the 2 rooms. There was a full another room that we used as a den, and that was like the family room, the kitchen, the half bath, the built-in pantry. The thing that made the house unique was that there were 2 staircases. When you came in the front entrance to the left, there was a staircase that went up to the 4 bedrooms on the 2nd floor. But also off of the kitchen, there was an additional kind of a spiral staircase that was enclosed. You had to open the door and go up the back steps. That was kind of fun because you could escape. And of course, when the children were younger, they liked going up one staircase and down the hall and down the other, and, great area for playing and so forth. The thing that was unique that we didn't like about that house, however, was that neighborhood, for whatever reason, we had bats in that area. Almost everybody who lived in that neighborhood for several blocks experienced at least one bat each summer getting into their home. You never knew quite how the bats got in, but that was the dreaded thing about summer. You knew that probably during the summer months, chances were that some night a bat would get into the house. One early morning hour, Cindy came into me. She said, "Mommy, Daddy, there are 2 birds flying around in my bedroom." Well, it turned out there were 2 bats that had gotten in that day. But that was one thing that we did not like about that house. Interestingly enough, we sold the house while the children were in college. That's when we moved to Dover, Delaware. Every time any of us went back to Schenectady, however, we always had to drive by and see our house. Cindy wanted John. She kept saying, "John, we have to buy our house back. That's our house." One time when Morgan and I went back, we were in the alley behind the house, just kind of looking, and the owner happened to come out. And so we said to him, "Oh, hello, we used to live in this house, and we just always have to come by to see it." And he said, "Would you like to come in?" He said, we've made some changes. And so we did. He took us around the house. We took pictures. We told him some of our experiences. We told him about the children. At that point, Cindy was in her battle with breast cancer. And we mentioned, our daughter and how much she loved the house. As it turns out, a year or two later, Cindy went to Schenectady with the children. She stopped by the house and knocked on the door to say, I used to live here. The woman of the family said, oh, we know who you are. Your parents were here. Come on in. Take a look. We'll show you everything that's changed. And so they welcomed her with open arms. When she died, I did send them a note and thank them again for adding that memory to her life because it meant so much to her. Then a year or two later, when John was in Schenectady for something, he went by the house. By then, a different couple owned it. He knocked on the door and said, I used to live in this house. And the woman who lived there was a young woman, and she said, oh, really? Oh, my goodness, I have a couple questions I'd like to ask you. And she said, my children are asleep right now. It's their nap time. Well, let's stand on the porch and talk. And one of the things she noticed when they painted the house, the back, she said there were several different layers of colors. And that was the funny thing. When we bought the house, it was a deep, kind of a burgundy red. We had it painted blue. The family that had lived there, when they painted it red, it had been yellow before that. And for a while, they had 3/4 of the house painted, but the back was still yellow. And they laughed at somebody who was making a delivery who came to the front. But then when they got around in the alley to make the delivery, they were confused because there was no red house off of the alley. So it was a unique house. We loved that house. In Glenwood Boulevard, the house at 1029 Glenwood Boulevard will always be our house, no matter how many people buy it in the future. So that's a house that was not just a home, that wasn't just a home. It was a house that was a house. I hope you have a place where you live that has such warm memories for you and your family. If you do, cherish your memories and pass them on.